Hello, I'm Catherine Weatherburn, the founder of Safetyknot, and we work with construction companies and organisations who have construction elements in their projects. And we do this with the aim to promote safety and to prevent injury. In this video, we're going to discuss common construction safety concerns, including common injuries on construction sites, the use of personal protective equipment or PPE, specifically hard hats, and also reporting culture. Now, according to the Health and Safety Executive in the UK, or the HSE, the most frequent causes of accidental death and injury in construction are from falls, mobile plant, falling material and collapses, electrical accidents and trips. Now, falls occur because people fall because access to and from the workplace is not adequate or the workplace itself is not safe. For mobile plants, this is people walking on site who are injured or killed by moving vehicles, particularly reversing ones. And drivers and operators are killed or injured by overturning vehicles and plants. Falling material and collapses happen, and people are struck by these materials falling from loads being lifted or materials that roll or kicked off work platforms. Others are struck or buried by falling materials when excavations, buildings, or structures collapse. Electrical accidents also occur. People suffer electrical shocks and burns when they use unsafe equipment, and when they come into contact with overhead power lines and buried cables. Trips, as I said, are one of the most common reported injuries on construction sites, with over 1,000 major injuries occurring each year, and this is in the UK specifically. However, most of these can be easily avoided with effective management of access routes. Now, sadly, the construction industry has a poor health record, and the Health and Safety Executive, or the HSE, say that construction workers are likely to suffer ill health as a result of their work in the industry after exposure to both harsh working conditions and hazardous substances. Ill health commonly results from asbestos, manual handling, noise and vibration, and chemicals. Other common hazards which could increase the risk of an injury occurring include an untidy site. This is because there's many hazards which can lead to slips, trips and falls. Incorrect lifting of heavy loads which can lead to musculoskeletal disorders. Digging trenches too deep without reinforcements. Or building materials being piled too high which can result in crush injuries. And if there is a lot of debris or rubbish on site, this can cause any fires that happen to spread quickly, which can increase the risk of burns, serious injuries, and fatalities. However, it's worth noting that just because these are common hazards found on construction sites, it doesn't mean that associated injuries are inevitable. And knowing this information can mean that safety control measures can be put in place to prevent these injuries from occurring, also from ill health happening and deaths from happening. And one such measure is the use of PPE. So some research suggests that construction workers who do not use PPE are 3 times more likely to be injured than those who do. And it's worth thinking about the hierarchy of controls here. It's an inverted triangle with elimination at the top of the triangle because it's the most effective, and PPE being the least effective at the bottom. Now, ideally, there'll be other safety control measures to implement rather than PPE. But if this is not possible, and if a risk assessment has been conducted and identifies that PPE is recommended, then the proper use of PPE can reduce the risk of injuries. But, as I'm sure you'll agree, PPE is often a contentious issue. In my experience, this is because even if workers have been provided PPE, they don't always wear it. Now, there's many reasons for this, and you know your community best, and I'm sure you'll have thoughts on why you think this is. But I just want to share some experiences that I've had and the workers have told me. And they've been told me that perhaps they've not been provided the correct PPE. They might not have received training in how to use PPE, when to use it, or how to use it. They may not understand the benefits of wearing it. It may be that it's quicker for workers not to use PPE, so that's why they're not using it. They may simply prefer not to use it, or it might be other reasons or a combination of different reasons which I haven't even touched upon. But when we talk about PPE, we often think of hard hats or safety helmets. Now, there is a difference between the two. I'm not going to go into all the differences here, but hard hats do tend to be cheaper than safety helmets, so they might be more commonly used, particularly in resource-limited contexts. Safety helmets tend to have a chin strap, though some hard hats also have chin straps. But in this video, I'm going to refer to these as hard hats. So hard hats exist ultimately to protect our heads. And this is because the impact of a brain injury can be life-changing. And this can be impacting for both the person who's injured, but also friends and family of the person who's had that injury. So wearing a hard hat, maintaining it and storing it appropriately are all vital to keeping hard hat wearers safe, as even a minor brain injury can have a major impact. So the results of a survey conducted by Headway in the UK revealed that amongst those who had experienced a head injury during construction work, 52% did not report an incident to their manager. Now, this is really important as reporting can support the prevention of future injuries. The accident triangle, developed by Herbert William Heinrich, states that before every major workplace injury, 29 minor injuries occurred beforehand, and 300 near misses happened before that. So if workers are having head injuries and they're not reporting them, then we're losing these vital learning opportunities. And this is also the case from reporting near misses when something almost happened but didn't. So this loses the opportunity to implement safety control measures to prevent future injuries from occurring. The survey also revealed that 15% of the 486 respondents stored their hard hat in an unsuitable way to keep them safe. So, for example, in direct sunlight or extreme temperatures. And in my experience of visiting sites in resource-limited contexts, there's nowhere for workers to store hard hats, so they're either left on the ground or they're hung from trees. The survey also revealed that 58% of workers had painted, marked, or applied decals or labels to their hard hat, which can cause a chemical attack and reduce its durability. Now, it's unclear from this survey whether these workers were aware of this information, but they decided to do it anyway for a different reason, or if they were in fact not aware that this could reduce the durability of their hard hat and also the protection to their head. Another practice I have seen that can reduce the effectiveness of the hard hat is by wearing scarves underneath them. The workers that I've spoken to have said that they do this because their hard hats are ill-fitting and are painful to wear, so the scarves help with comfort, or they want to protect themselves from the sun, particularly in hot climates where it's very sunny. However, wearing these scarves under hard hats can limit the effectiveness of the hard hats if they were to be hit. And workers may be unaware of this. In fact, the workers I spoke to were. In fact, they said to me that they had been thinking that we're reducing one risk, such as shading their eyes from the sun so that they could properly see to work and to be safer, but they were unknowingly replacing this risk with a different risk by reducing the effectiveness of their hard hat. So we just want to make sure that workers understand the different options that are available to them so that they can make the decisions themselves, but they need to be aware of all the information available. Now, just touching upon sun for shade, sun protection add-ons can be purchased which do not reduce the effectiveness of the hard hat, but these do come at a cost, which is why the employer may not be willing to pay for them. Now, unfortunately, low quality or fake hard hats are available in the market, and these are often a desirable option because they're very low cost. And there are a number of ways that can determine whether hard hats are real, so please do let your workers know that there should be clear and legible markings such as kite marks, that's the UK standard, or CE marks, which is the European standard. There may be other standards in the region that you're working in. But hard hats should also have a consistent block colour to them, and if you hold them up to the light, there should not be any patches, so this should be clear, consistent colour, and this is a check that workers can do. Hard hats also have expiry dates on them, which is usually a circle of numbers with an arrow that corresponds to a month or a year. Every hard hat, if it's good quality, will come with a set of instructions of how to use it and how to work out its expiration date. These instructions should be attached to the individual helmet, or if you've bought a whole bag, if you bought in bulk, the instructions will be attached to that bag. But in our experience, a lot of workers are unaware that exceeding the expiry date of the hard hat can reduce the level of protectivity. And in fact, many workers do not know where to find the expiry date on their hard hat, or actually a lot are unaware that it even has one. So this demonstrates that it's not just important to provide hard hats, or let's talk about PPE in general, to workers, but actually workers need to be aware of how to use the PPE properly, how to maintain it, how to look after it, how to check it, and also how the PPE keeps them safe so that they can ensure their PPE is providing them the full level of protection and they can make their own decisions about how to use PPE. Now, just on a side note, in June each year, it's Hard Hat Awareness Week. And during this time, there are many free resources available, many ideas, discussions online. So it may well be worthwhile adding this to your safety calendar. Now I'd like to touch upon injury reporting culture in construction. As mentioned, research revealed that amongst those who had experienced a head injury in the UK, 52% didn't report an incident to their manager. Now, when I conduct site visits and I'm told or I see signs that have a 0 indicating there have been no accidents or injuries, I don't think, oh, absolutely fantastic, this is a really safe site. I think, uh-oh. And that's because it's likely that there's not proper reporting in place or people aren't reporting. And this is why the number of injuries or incidents is actually 0. Now, there are many reasons why there may not be a good culture of reporting, and you know your community best. But in my experience, this may be because this simply isn't a focus. Perhaps there's no time. Perhaps people aren't focused on it. Maybe no one has been allocated this role. Maybe workers don't want to report injuries because the paperwork involved takes too much time, or they may fear being reprimanded. There are many reasons why reported injuries may be zero, but what we do know is that not accurately reporting injuries can lead to more injuries. And this is why. So remember I mentioned the accident triangle, which identifies that for every major workplace injury that occurs, there have been 29 minor injuries and 300 near misses. So this highlights the importance of gathering information about near misses and minor injuries, as learning from these incidents can enable safety control measures to be put in place. And these can support with the prevention of that incident from occurring again. And this can hopefully prevent major injury or fatalities from happening. So discussing this with your community may be a useful entry point, as if it's not clear what near misses and injuries are happening on site, it won't be clear how a site can become safer, because remember, near misses give indications of what didn't happen but almost happened. So this is where a health and safety risk assessment is really helpful to conduct before starting work. As well as more formal risk assessments being conducted, if workers have gotten to grips with the concept of risk, they can also conduct their own mini assessments before starting work. So, for example, prior to starting work, workers could look up and around and also down to see if it's safe to start work. If they identify anything that they feel could be unsafe to them or a hazard, then they can take action to make it safe prior to them starting work. Before starting work, workers can also check the condition of the tools that they're going to be using. Are there any damage? Should they be fixed? Should they be replaced before use? And this is also the same process for all PPE that's going to be used. However, even if workers are aware of the risk of common construction injuries, it may appear that they are not taking measures to reduce the risk of these injuries. Now, common reasons for this lack of adoption of risk reduction practices could include that there's no budget for tools to be repaired or replaced, there's no available replacement PPE, there's no safety training provided for workers. However, this could also be for a multitude of reasons, and as I said earlier, you know your community best. So you know probably why some of these practices are taking place, but if you don't ask them, because if you ask them and you can better understand why workers are making the decisions that they are, then you can understand if they know the risks that are involved but decide not to implement safety measures, or if there are reasons out of their control that mean they're not able to implement such safety measures. Now, I hope that you found this video helpful as a starting point to talking and thinking about common injuries on construction sites. And today we've discussed the use of hard hats, reporting culture, amongst other things. And I really hope that this has been helpful, as I say, as a starting point for you to start these conversations with the workers that you work with to discuss some of the common safety concerns on construction sites, so that workers can, if they choose to implement safety measures to prevent common injuries from happening.